Ladies and gentlemen, I am John Cosat, and it is a pleasure to be speaking with you. I reside on the north side of Soldier Circle in Spring Hill Cemetery. I am surrounded by many of my comrades, and while I was fortunate enough to live a full life before moving there, many of my friends gave up all of their tomorrows in service of our country. Now, while I was a soldier, it was only for a year of my life, and that was such a small part of my life. Being a teacher and minister, those were the two professions that I was dedicated to. I put on the uniform of our country when I felt that it was my duty to serve. But I have been asked to speak to you about my time in the Civil War, and most specifically about the time that we captured a high-ranking officer of the Confederate Army. I was a 20-year-old corporal in a Wisconsin regiment in the spring of 1865. The South had been defeated, but they still fought on. I saw and experienced terrible things at places like Petersburg that made me want to never think or talk about the war ever again. During that time, a half dozen of us became separated from our company. And as we were making our way through some brush, we spotted these Confederates at a distance. From the flags flying high within them, we knew that a high-ranking officer was there. Now, our sergeant was with us, and he called us together and said, "Boys, we can capture that rebel officer, whoever he is." Let me tell you, that did not sound like the greatest idea in the world, because that officer, he had a whole lot of men with him, and there was only 6 of us. But our sergeant was pretty convincing, so we followed his lead. He had us line up, separated by a few yards, hidden in the brush along the road that the rebels were coming down. When they got close, we were to step out, point our rifles at them, and Sarge would position himself nearest the Confederates and order them to surrender. He told us that when we did that, they would believe that the brush would still be filled with concealed Yankees. Well, there they came, riding their horses, and there we were, 6 tired, enlisted men, more than a little apprehensive about what might be about to happen. It was a hot day, and you could still hear a distant shot of a rifle as the battle was breathing its last gasp. Then there they were, nearly on us, and Sarge says, "Step out, boys!" So we did. And in a sharp voice, he ordered them to put down their weapons. Well, it's a good thing that they didn't shoot us, because they sure had us outnumbered. That old general, he eyed us for what seemed like an hour, but was probably only a few seconds. And then he told his men that it was over and asked one of them to fly a white flag. Then we took them on down the road till we found more of our men and their officer, turned them over, and we continued on till we found our regiment. The war ended shortly thereafter, and I came home. But the memories of those battles, they never leave you. Now, my father was a teacher, and I followed in his footsteps. And when I was in the Army, several men could not read or write. I saw firsthand how crippling illiteracy can be. Those men wanted to write home, but they needed someone else to do the writing for them. That gave me a great inspiration to becoming a teacher, and I taught for a quarter of a century. I also was an ordained minister in the Christian church, and I organized a number of congregations. I was still young when I became a minister, and it only took me a little while to realize what kind of sermons that people liked. Friends, they like short ones. Yes, they do. They like them tight, compact, and compressed, that if I were to run over, I would see fidgeting and men trying to get a peek at their pocket watch. A minister will always get high marks for finishing on time. I also know that a restless flock is not the sign of a good shepherd. I was preacher at a dozen churches here in the county, and I was minister at Union Christian Church for over 20 years. It gave me great pleasure to see a weak and floundering congregation recover and become strong and focused. I also did other things. I stayed close to the land. Once a farmer, always a farmer, they say. And there was another saying that held true in my day, and that was, if you want to starve, be a preacher or a teacher. And those two professions held many rewards beyond monetary compensation, which was very fortunate because there was very little pay for either of those in my time. With my son Theodore, I was in the real estate business. I was also justice of the peace, and I served as assessor and clerk for Blunt Township for many years. I did many things to earn money so that I may afford to follow the two professions to which I was truly dedicated to. I had one child with my first wife, Frances. When Frances passed away, I married Emma, and we shared nearly 50 happy years together before I moved to Soldier Circle in 1918. We had 13 children together, and only 8 of them survived to see the 20th century. My friends, I think I have detained you long enough. I thank you, and I leave you with this. You are still writing your history.